because I am black.
Just because you're black?
Students come to me, yes, just because I am black, especially the Afghans and then some of the Indians. They think that we, the blacks, we don't fit in.
To present a piece on racism, presenting my friend, the Wiki guy.
Africa, a continent which covers 20.4% of the land area of the entire world. And yet, the only stupid meme we share about Africa is that of men dancing at a funeral. The funeral of our knowledge about Africa. And on the other side is our pathetic ignorance about Africa and its culture. Now, on this show tonight, I want to talk about racism towards the African community in India and the repeated attacks on African students in India and what they go through on a daily basis. For this segment thus, I want to share with you the story of Jeff, an African native from Ghana who fell in love with India and chose to come here because of the opportunities in our IT sector. Jeff chose India over all other countries he could have chosen. And what happened to him was shocking at best and appalling at worst. This is Jeff's story. Here's the first part of my interview with Jeff.
Hey Jeff, thanks so much for joining us here on this channel, and thanks for your time and choosing us to share your thoughts. So Jeff, before starting, I would like to ask you a couple of questions about, and we're going to talk about your experience here in India. But what I'm going to ask you is, first Jeff, where are you actually from, and why did you choose India?
Okay, I am from Ghana, where I'm located in West Africa. I chose India because it's the IT. They have the IT hub here, and then I felt that coming to study IT here would be a great idea and would extend my knowledge and help me gain whatever I want to gain.
What do you do in
that's studying BCA, that's Bachelor of Computer Applications, in Jin University.
Okay, I'm going to ask you this. What did you make of India when you landed here first? When was it, and what did you make of it?
When I landed here in India, to be precise, Bangalore, I got a bit scared because I didn't really, because my school had to come in and pick me up from the airport when I got to India, but then I was told that I had to book my own car to the school. And then even when I got to the airport, the way people used to stare at me, and then the way when they see me, they speak in their language, and then they just laugh. So it was really getting me a little bit scared, and I really got worried. First when I was in India.
Jeff says he felt uncomfortable when he landed here because people were staring at him and spoke a different language. Now, the language debate is of course a complicated one in which the locals want their languages to be learned. But our effort is to try and make a change in the experiences of people like Jeff in our country, who can, by the positivity of the experience, choose to learn the language instead of feeling like they're being left out of it. Instead of thinking he doesn't speak our language, trying to learn his language can help us understand another section of people's lives better, while they try to understand ours. We'll try to have a balanced discussion on language later. But for now, I want to focus on the other thing that Jeff said, as to how staring at a person who looks different from us, an experience Jeff said he has had, can make a person feel very, very, very uncomfortable. I'll give you an example. Imagine you're in the US at a Trump rally, and suddenly you see a bunch of white people staring at you for no reason, and you realize you're the only brown man there. How terrified would you be? And if at least one of those white men looked like Ted Bundy, the serial killer, you would run, get on the plane, flying to Djibouti, and live in isolation for the rest of your lives. Out of that sheer one-time traumatic experience, wouldn't you? Hats off to Jeff, who chose to stay and learn about our culture and continue to believe in the idea of India most Indians believe in. Na goro ki, na kalo ki, ye duniya hai dilwalo ki. And we respect his struggle here at the Wiki Guy. Here's the next part of our interview.
Then you came to your college from the airport, and then you got admission. And then, Jeff, you say that you have faced kinds of racism in your college. Would you like to share some of these unfortunate experiences you had in your college or outside?
Yes, I would love to share them. The school itself, my college itself, it's one of the best schools I have known. Ever since I came to India, but there are certain things going on that sometimes gets me worried and then disturbs me a lot. I have had so many encounters ever since I got to this college, especially having students come to me, fight with me because I am black, because I am black.
Just because you're black?
Students come to me, yes, just because I am black, especially the Afghans and some of the Indians. Yeah, they think that we, the blacks, and we don't fit in. The first experience I had was when some few Afghans, about 5 of them, came to me just to fight me, and it was really a bad experience for me.
Knowing Jeff a bit better now, if he says it was a bad experience, it probably was pretty damn messed up an experience he had. Making a person feel that they do not fit in just because they look different from us is not something that like-minded Indian citizens will take for granted if we come to know that this is happening in our country, in our colleges. So the question is, who are these people that attacked him? And what drove them to put up a fight against a person who has neither disturbed him in any way and nor do they have any history of enmity with? To get answers to these questions, we had a conversation with Jeff regarding their background, and he told us exactly who they were. But he asked us specifically not to name them in this segment, so we won't be naming them upon his request. But we'll tell you this much. These people that attacked Jeff were nothing but associates of local fringe groups in Bangalore, trying to instigate political violence by using Jeff's race as an excuse. It's as simple as that. So our focus should be on these fringe groups and all others that exist all over India and how they operate, focusing especially on the African community on today's segment, especially in places like Bangalore and Greater Noida, which have a large population of these wonderful communities. There have been a lot of incidents that seem like they're racially motivated. A 21-year-old African woman and 3 of her friends from Tanzania were beaten up by local fringe groups in Bangalore in 2016. 4 African nationals were beaten up while they were returning home in March 2015 by these fringe groups, and there are many more such cases. All these go to indicate that these fringe groups have the mindset that some Indians are still hardwired to believe that fairer skin is better and black is not. Since no such incidents have been reported on other ethnicities as frequently as Africans. For those people who at this point are thinking that I somehow am indicating that all Indians are racist, first, congratulations for not getting the point. You can call me anti-national in the comments, but I'll still say that because most of us are not racist and we are a liberal country, does not mean that we as a society will be oblivious to those who are racist and not talk about them and their racism. I mean, we can't just act like there are no racist Indians. If that were true, this tube of dog poo wouldn't exist in our country. My point is, our version of racism is very different from the rest of the world, and we are usually racist towards people who are a non-white stereotype. Even though, and this is true, the people who are pro-white, anti-black racist are usually non-whites themselves. The colonial hardwiring was done ages ago, and yet it still persists. The question is, why? Studies show that it has been worsened by provocative politics that these illegal fringe groups, the one that attacked Jeff, instigate. causing harm to our guests living harmless lives in our cosmopolitan cities. I want to prove my point that some Indians are pretty racist towards dark-skinned people by making you listen to Tarun, an interviewee at Al Jazeera, who tried to defend the notion that Indians aren't racist.
If we were racist, why would have all the entire South, which is complete, Tamil, Kerala, Karnataka and Andhra. Why do we live with them?
What the does that even mean, you racist? What do you mean, why would we be with them? Answer me one thing. What's us and them in this ignorant comment? Isn't he basically saying that us are the first grade citizens? And then there are these second grade dems, and we are somehow doing them a favor by staying with them? People like Tarun are open racists and doesn't get the fact that we are all equal tax-paying citizens of this country. And even if someone's not a citizen, an exchange student, they still have the right as citizens in terms of liberty and the right against racial discrimination without question. This kind of mentality of judging people based on the color of their skin and not the content of their character, and in India's case, based on the traditionally taught stereotypes, is the most pathetic thing that someone can do today, and which is why our African communities are feeling unwelcome. Not just Africans. I'll talk about some of the existing stereotypes. I'll list out a few often used. South Indians. As per stereotypes, all South Indians are Madrasis. Northeasterners, pathetically called Chinkies. Bengali women, obviously black magicians. Africans, drug peddlers. And white Indians are the only group left, and we put them in Bollywood. Sticking to Africans, again on this segment, Africans have been targeted especially in some of these racially motivated incidents by fringe groups in Delhi, Bangalore, etc. And it was always because of the color of their skin, whether people like Tarun like to acknowledge it or not. Similar attacks were much less reported on people of other ethnicities. So let's talk about these fringe groups that are spreading this hatred in a little more detail today. We'll try to get to the bottom of this here on this show and try to understand how they operate. These fringe groups, which are often politically motivated to divide people in the South, had always historically chosen language to divide. Now, as cities are becoming exceedingly cosmopolitan, religion and race is often being used in the South too, and we must try to stop them before it's too late. The role of these fringe groups in politics is to make sure that the narrative for asking for votes before elections is that of how outsiders have ruined our cities. And in the process, the stereotyping of Indians from other states based on language, non-Indians from other countries based on ethnicity, instead of focusing on development of the region for all communities that have been permitted to live there. Sticking to these attacks on our friend Jeff, there's also the angle of how this kind of an environment, because of the divisive politics at the top, gets to the mind of young college students and causes different communities to turn against each other, often leading to violence in colleges with young students. Instigating Afghans against Africans, Africans against Indians, North Indians against South Indians, based on their language, skin color, etc. in these multicultural cities like Bangalore and Greater Noida. This is getting exceedingly and dangerously common in these cities, even in the finest institutions, such as Jeff's own. My point is, the language debate is moving away from a constructive debate of uplifting our languages to a violent political one. And we must, as logical citizens, make sure that violence does not arise because of it within our budding student communities and hamper their mental development. The Jain College is no exception to the long list of colleges where there's a clear Indian-non-Indian divide and a North and South Indian divide, in which the cultural differences are often exploited by these political groups operating in the vicinity of these colleges. And thus students and their families are scared to mingle with other communities outside their own and get an opportunity to learn from the diversity and cherishing the difference between these communities. It is all because of the political stereotyping that this is happening. The North-South divide is worsened by the differences of languages between these groups. All these make it essential that we talk about the language divide briefly, which Jeff said made his experience worse. To summarize the language game, Hindi is the national language. Bro, even I know it is not, and I don't expect it to be. We all agree it is not. Give me some time, I'll learn the local language. Yes, it is national. Hey Bhagavan. Speaking Hindi? He's imposing Hindi. No, he's not. He's not imposing anything. He's living his life. Why are you shouting? I am shouting because pollution problem in city because of Hindi. How is the pollution problem because of Hindi? Lake pollution problem because these people don't know Hindi. No, it's not. How can lake pollution problem be because of a language? It's not because of any language. Nobody believes that. It's because you have not done your job. Yeah, you haven't done your job of sustainable urban planning. I agree. You guys cannot agree. What will I answer to public if you guys agree? Hindi versus Kannada. Stop messing up my vote banks. That's basically the summary of the language game. Now bear in mind, although we are strictly against racism in any form and have openly taken Jeff's side to support the cause, in language, we, including Jeff, are trying to have a balanced discussion to come up with a solution to their coexistence. Sure, you may think that you don't need anyone to speak up for your language, but we will do it anyways. Let's see how much of the bad experience of the non-native speakers are due to the language gap, and we'll try to see a solution of how we can popularize our local languages and make them fun to learn instead of letting hateful politicians ruin them. Now, it is inevitable in a country like India with so many regional languages, there is bound to be a problem in interstate and international communication. Foreigners and people from other states may find it difficult to travel if we don't have proper signages, for example. There have been instances of removal of Hindi from metro stations, again just to divide people, when no divide exists. And I'm pretty sure that the comment section will be pretty explicit in the argument. I got a pass marks in Hindi in my 5th grade, and hence I won't advocate to speak up against its removal, nor go to the whataboutism against Hindi states. However, it is true that instead of removing any language, adding an additional language after the regional language would instead help and boost outsiders' experience in these states. It is high time that we come up with an international standard language policy for each of our language-based states, prioritizing the state language and accepting all other languages instead of having politicians playing divisive politics and ruining our languages in the process. In fact, having a proper policy can be beneficial in both ways, making the experience of interstate and international travelers easier, adding to the diversity, and protecting and spreading our languages along with these communities, and improving the quality of content in all languages equally. This goes for both Hindi and non-Hindi speaking states. Let's hear Jeff's advice on this.
Learning a new language is one of the best things a person can have or can get. I am not against them wanting me to speak their language, but the medium in which they are communicating to me is the wrong way. They should know that they should know that they do not have the idea or when I came to India and then how long I have stayed in India. I am even trying my possible best to learn the language. I've learned a little bit of stuff, but they are communicating to me in a wrong channel by telling me that I should be able to speak their language so that I can fit in a community and then do whatever I want to do.
Next time we spot any divisive language politics in forms of fear-mongering that our languages will be lost, we must ask our politicians what they have done to spread our languages peacefully, and whether we should be fearful of their fear-mongering nature, which may be more dangerous to our languages than the actual guests and settlers who are adding to our diversity. So he spoke of Jeff's experience. We understood the two aspects of why Africans have historically been targeted by fringe groups. The reason number one is the actual racism incited by haters of the dark skin, and reason number two, the language difference, which is unfortunately exploited in the worst possible way. For racist attack on African people in general, which have surprisingly come to light in recent years, Jeff says, we must remember that the majority of Indians have been helpful towards him.
India, or Bangalore to be precise, my community where I have lived, or the places where I have lived. It's, to be frank with you, there are a lot of good Indians around. Sometimes when I don't have money, I even go to the shops, some of the shops, and then, borrow some stuff, and then they give me, expecting me that, when I get the money, I can come and then pay. So most of the communities I have lived in are good communities, and they have good people, except just a few people who try to be racist.
Those who have chosen to live a life of hatred towards outsiders and go for racism and divisive politics are the ones who are not welcome in the Wiki community. My advice to them is to remember the idea of India and its stand in the position of racism in the world since our independence and the story of our independence. My friend Jeff concludes.
My best memories, or my memory would be when I live here, would be I went to see a friend, and the kind of biryani that was prepared, I have never ever tasted, and then I'm always dreaming and looking forward to have that kind of biryani I ate that day. I really loved that biryani. Yeah. Then when you compare the Ghanaian culture to the Indian culture, it's different. Then a lot of people like to watch the Indian movies more than even other movies internationally. So when you talk of India and then Ghana, there's something a little bit in common because we like watching Indian movies a lot.
You can watch the whole of Jeff's interview on our Patreon page. Young Jeff wishes to be a pilot someday and do good things for his country. We wish him all the best should he choose to stay here or anywhere else with his head held high. He decided to leave a message for us in his native language. And here's our opportunity to learn about them. And then at the end, he translates at the end.
Do you speak Swahili?
No. I don't speak Swahili. Swahili is mostly for the Eastern African countries.
Okay, what is the language that you speak at home?
Shi and then Ga Adange.
Send out a message to people in your language. Could you say something?
Yeah. Enuanom anyamime makashi bia na nimba onye mfiofio ni ebe izi na kanshi modomo wonye mfiofio ni mimi asanima feli nke chomi ni nke green school na mi fele fiofio teni yo aye beme papa na aye beme efon ye biene shi ni modomo na imi ahi ina sane bibi komeni me attack ni gani shi no fe no ye okay ni so like ke ni magbi in school na ni anu se ni amaka no ya India ye kupa ina oba we ni beji but yes that I was on hwe musu ye na the oba se oba be no wodi we ni besi no waye na why yeah.
I'm a little scared to ask you to translate that right now for us.
So I was saying that India, it's a good place. I have had good experiences and bad experiences. But then, if you really want to continue staying in India, and then you should focus on what you came to do. Just be in your lane, show respect, and then focus on what you are doing, and then just you'll be fine and everything will be okay.
Yeah. So that's our interview with Jeff and our message against racism. So while analyzing the facts, we tried to divide people into two categories, good and bad, instead of race. But it is unfortunate when things like race still come up in regular discussions, even in parts of the world which were never racist to begin with. We thank you for watching this segment on race and hope haters choose to change their ways after this message from a young, hardworking student. We will continue to report these incidents and analyze the cause of it, if and when they arise, while hoping that they never arise. Thanks for tuning in to the Wiki Kai. Have a good night.